Welcome to Payroll Setup Lesson number 8 on working in the Employee Taxes tab. I have clicked open the Employee Taxes tab so that I can see all the taxes that come with the program. Now the first thing you're going to want to do is hide all of the taxes in this list that you don't normally deal with. You can always select them if you find later that you're going to be working in multiple states. You can select as many of taxes on this list as you want that you normally work with. But in the meantime, you want to hide all of the taxes on this list that you don't normally work with. So what I've done is I've checked all the taxes that I want to hide. So as I scroll down, you're going to see that my federal income tax and my 2 FICAs are unchecked because those are my active taxes. And if you have a state tax, you're also going to want to make sure that that is also unchecked. So that once you have them checked, you can go up to View and Hide Selected Taxes. So that your view here, your list of taxes, and your taxes on your tax reports will not have all of those other taxes on it as well. It will only have your active taxes on it. And these are the ones that we're going to work with. Now at a later time, you can always view all of your taxes again, and maybe, if there's another state you're going to start working in, uncheck it, and then when you say hide all selected taxes, that newly unchecked one will remain on your list. Now I'm going to hide that one as well, so I'm going to say view, and then actually check it there, and then hide selected taxes. So, 2 reasons you want to do that. First of all, to get this list of just your active taxes, and then your tax reports actually will not have all of those other taxes on it that you don't normally deal with. Now that we have taxes displayed, the first thing you want to do is double click on each one of these so that that tax is brought down to the edit fields down below, where you can then attach the liability account in your general ledger to the tax that you're working on. And that's all you should need to do on this main screen. So once you've done that, you want to click Save, in which case that tax will be resaved and you'll see that GL account change right here. So you want to do this with all of your taxes, is make sure that the liability account is the proper one for that tax, and then resave it. Now the other thing that you can do with your taxes is to make sure that the tax tables are correct. Now by the end of 2005, we anticipate having a program you can grab online to update your different tax codes and your tax levels. So the tax levels, when we click into tax levels, you can see the actual tax tables, or what we call levels, that make up the tax table. And these levels are broken out by head of household, married, single, or whatever your particular state or whatever the tax is has for different breakouts for filing statuses, because each state can be different. Now if you're working with a Circular E and you're comfortable with manually changing your tax tables, you can do this. Let's say you're preparing for 2006 and you've set up your year for 2006. You could come back to your General tab, select the year 2006, and then go back to your tax tables and prepare them for 2006. See that? And then you can switch back to 2005 and finish out the year. So it's just up to you how comfortable you are changing your tax tables. Otherwise, again, our online program will allow you to change your tax tables as well. But changing tax tables is very simple. We use annual tax tables with everything. So whether it's the federal government or state governments or locals or whatever, we're always dealing with the annual tax tables. So this tax table looks exactly like the one in the Federal Circular E that you get at the end of every year. So if you compared side by side this tax table with the one in the book, you can see that whether this tax table is up to date or not. If it's not, we can work line by line or level by level and update these tax tables. So by double clicking on a single line, it brings it down to the edit fields where we can then change any of the information, again comparing it to the manual, the federal e-manual, and save each line so you can see the changes. And you can do this line by line, level by level. So if you're comfortable with this idea of editing your tax tables, it's actually a very simple concept, very easy to do. Now the other idea about tax tables is that some of you deal with local taxes. You have school taxes, Ohio, Pennsylvania, you two states there have extensive local taxes, Indiana as well. So you can set up local taxes in here too for the different localities that you deal with. So to set up a local tax, what you want to do is click New, and it brings you down to the edit fields, entry edit fields, where you can then customize that local tax. So the first thing you want to do when you're selecting a local tax is select local income tax from the drop down, or whatever tax that you're setting up is being represented as by your state or local government. But local tax is the most common, so when I hit enter, the code then changes to local, and you could put in the name of the local tax. It could be, a city name, could be a school district, whatever. And in the S name field, which shows up on the pay runs that you do, all of your reports, and on the check stubs, you also can put a brief description of what the tax is there in the S name field. You also want to link this tax to its appropriate GL account. The W-2 box should always represent what type of tax it is. So where do you want it to show on the W-2s? Maybe you don't want it to show it all on the W-2s, but in the case of local taxes, that's the one you want to select. Now these next two fields, the state and the link tax, are important for the local tax to know which state it's attached to. So in the state, you select the 2-character code for your state, and then in the link tax, you want to select the actual written out description of the state that you're linking the tax to. Now that's all you need to do to set up what we call the tax header. So when I save this by clicking the Save button on the toolbar, it will then appear in my list of active taxes. Now what I need to do is actually get my level of tax in there. So I'm going to double click on it so that that tax shows right above the tax header tab. And when I go into levels, then I can enter as many levels for the tax as I have. Just as you saw in the federal tax and state taxes as well, you may have different levels of tax. But traditionally on most local taxes, there's only one level of tax. Not always, but most of the time. So I'm going to click the New button at the lower right of the screen, and I'm going to select a filing status from here, but because it's a local tax, COBRA assumes that it's not going to be relative to the filing status. So we'll just select the not applicable filing status. And the description of the level, I just put 1 in here to represent the level, and then the minimum amount. Well, if the tax is based on $0 to $9999999 that a person can make during the year, this is the most common for local taxes, is setting up 0 for minimum and maximum amount of all 9s. And then your rate of tax. If it's 2%, you put 0.02. If it's 1%, it's 0.01. 10% would be 0.10, like that. Now, typically that's all you need to do for a local tax. So you really don't need to enter through all of these other fields because these are used primarily with federal and state taxes. So I'm just going to click Save so that that tax amount shows right here. Now if it changes next year, I can just double click on it and I can just press Enter down to the rate field, change it, and resave that line so that the new rate shows up here. And that's all there is to setting up your taxes. This ends the lesson on working in the Taxes tab.